This is the Believe in Texans podcast alongside former Houston Texans wide receiver, 6-year NFL veteran Cecil Patrick III. I am Patrick Creighton, host of Area 45 on Sports Radio 610, your flagship home of all things Houston Texans. 2-0, baby. How's it feel? 2-0. You know what? 2-0 feels better than 0-2 like the rest of the division, doesn't it?
Ooh, shots fired. Bap, 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 bap. Man, it feels good to be 2-0. It feels good just to find ways to win. It feels good to play on Sunday night. I mean, how beautiful was that scenery last night? The fireworks, the open NRG Stadium. First time in 5 years you played on the world stage of Sunday night football. So to come out with a win, to come out 2-0 is pretty cool.
I tell you what, it almost felt like a bowl game, right?
Yeah.
So the roof's open, the fireworks are going off. There's a lot of special things going on. It's prime time Sunday night. Probably about 70% Texans fans, 30% Bears fans. I was surprised how loud the Bears fans were. I
Oh, man.
understood a year ago when people were selling their tickets because you sell them long before the season that people hadn't bought in yet on CJ Stroud, on Will Anderson, on D'Amico Ryans. But this year, the Texans have aspirations. Everybody knew the Texans had aspirations. For Bears fans to get that many tickets for a Sunday night game, first time in 5 years, Texans are on Sunday night, that was a little surprising to me. I feel like Texans fans need to do a better job of not selling their tickets to the other side on prime time. Hello, what are we doing here? This is a team that, like, you want this team to get to a title game. You want this team to maybe get to a Super Bowl, and you're selling your tickets to the enemy. Like, those people should be hunted down. We need to hunt them down, strip them of their tickets, give them to the real fans, and not allow these shenanigans to ever happen again.
That's tough, Pat, because I think Houston is like a
Take
transient
burlap
city.
sacks and beaten with reeds.
Like, oh my gosh. Well, you know, Houston's like everybody comes from everywhere to come to Houston, right? All different places that to live in Houston. And the Bears travel well. They do. They're one of those teams, the Bears, the Packers, Cowboys, there's a few other teams. They Steelers, they travel well. But it was disappointing how loud they were. Like, it was times you hear, "Let's go Bears." I'm like, what in the world? Like you could hear it all through the stadium. All behind their bench, it was tons of orange and that whatever is navy blue or whatever color blue it is. But I tell you what, when the Texas fans got loud, they were extremely loud. They were extremely loud. It's just hard, man, because I agree with you. Don't sell to the Bears. Don't sell to the opposing team. Who cares about them? Who gives a crap what they have going on? But at the end of the day, we got that dub. Texas
It
got
did
that.
make for a fun atmosphere, right? I mean, the crowd was hot the whole game.
They were
Uh,
packed the whole game too. They came early. Like it was packed early on from kickoff. Because normally, when the Texans, because I guess it's a new game, everybody's tailgating. It's kind of hard to get in. But last night, 7:20 kickoff, it was jam packed in there from like 7 o'clock on. It was pretty cool.
they were probably still tailgating from 8 in the morning. They just tailgated longer. Um, some of these, like, whatever time they open the gates, okay, we're in there. And tailgating's a big deal in Houston, man. People tailgate like crazy. So there's some pretty badass tailgates that go on there out there too. So
Oh, for sure.
they got multiple grills going on and smokers. They got big screen TVs, and it's like, wait a second, how do y'all get big screen TVs out here? Yeah, they got big screen TVs out there with satellite, and it's like, okay, some of y'all got way too much time, effort, money all involved in this. Can we just eat and
They
drink and have a
care,
good
man.
time?
They
But
care. They
it,
they want the full experience. They want to cheer their Texans on. You can't be mad at that, Pat.
oh, I
That's
ain't mad at
huge,
it.
man.
I mean, I'm a little jealous about it, but I ain't mad at it.
An
You know,
invite would be nice, right? An invite would be nice.
I mean, listen, if I had an RV that basically looked like a tour bus, and I had put TVs all around it and I got grills coming out the back,
Yeah.
listen, if I had like 300 grand to drop on something like that,
Ooh. Ooh, must be nice, right?
I want to get
Must
some
be nice.
partners. Not gonna lie, I'd want to get some partners. I don't think I want to part with all that on my own. But some of those tailgates are seriously badass. There's some really good
They are.
stuff going on out there. Look, this game didn't go, I think, the way that we all thought it would. I mean, look, I thought the Texans were going to mudhole stomp them.
Mm-hmm.
I thought this was going to be an old-fashioned beat down. The Bears are going to struggle to move the ball. They did. The Texans were going to put up, 3-4 touchdowns. They put up one. Now, they might have had a second if Tank Dell holds on to a ball over the middle. And they might have had another if Cam Akers doesn't put it on the carpet at the 3-yard line.
Yep.
But, this is a game where the Texans easily outgained the Bears by over 100 yards. I mean, this wasn't a comparable game. You get into, total yards. Texans had 310. The Bears had 205.
Mm-hmm.
And Tank doesn't drop that touchdown pass, and it's probably, 360.
Mm-hmm.
But this was a game where there were certain matchups that I thought would be exploited. Some of them worked, some of them not so much. So Nico Collins, right? Dude, Nico Collins, we were all wondering, who's going to be, quote, the number one receiver. The answer is Nico Collins,
Period.
who leads the NFL with 252 yards right now. Nico destroy zones, and the Bears play a ton of zone.
Yep.
That Nico was going to eat last night. Nico absolutely destroyed the Bears last night. 8 catches, 135 yards, and an angry touchdown. And in fact, an angry touchdown after he got a questionable flag for unsportsmanlike conduct when a Bears player put his finger inside his face mask and literally poked him in the eye. Nico shoved him off. Last guy to make a move is the one who gets flagged, because why would officials use their brains? So Nico got flagged for 15 yards, and then the very next play, he goes 28 yards into the end zone, and then a little WWE style throwdown of a defender in the end zone after the catch. Kind of put the little exclamation point on it. Angry touchdown. But man, Nico Collins destroyed the Bears zone last night. Will Levis threw for 127 yards against the Bears last week. Will Levis can't carry C.J. Stroud's bags, but that's another story. I thought Nico could outgain in yards more than Will Levis threw last week, and he did.
He did. Nico had a day, man. You mentioned 8 catches on 10 targets, 135 yards, and a touchdown. But he is the clear-cut number one receiver in Houston. There's no question about it. And it's not because of whatever. He's earning it. Period. He's the best receiver we have on the football team. That says a lot, because you still got Stephon Diggs, you still got Tank Dell, you still got these other guys. But the way he is showing up in multiple occasions, making the tough catch, the physicality he's showing in his routes, the physicality he's showing when the ball's in the air to make that contested catch, the way he's running his routes, the way he has the chemistry with C.J. Stroud, for whatever the reason, when they scramble and getting scramble drill, he looks for Nico Collins to be in the right spot, and he seems to be in the right spot time and time and time again. He is just a special receiver who I think Casero needs to get that credit for. 3rd-round pick, rough maybe 1 or 2 years, came on last year, then this year paid him top 12 or top 15 when it comes to his average salary this year, which is right on the money. But he is going to be special. 24, 25 years old, he is going to be a special player for years to come. So I'm excited to see him continue to ascend.
Now, there was a lot of discussion about, hey, would Nico Collins have been a first-round pick if he had played the COVID season? Because, he was a really good receiver in college, but he didn't play the COVID season. And that's a big part of the reason why he fell from, say, being a first-round pick to being a 3rd-round pick. And, yeah, I think the Texans got an absolute steal with him. And that is, that's Nick Caserio. This is what he excels at, right? Finding guys that other teams don't find. Whether it's in the draft, whether it's, in free agency, the way he picks guys up, off the waiver wire, off the scrap heap per se. He just finds guys, and those guys all fit in the system. So it's pretty At this point, I think we've got a track record with Nick Caserio. He finds dudes.
Yeah, he's good at it. He's really, really good at it. Really, really good at it.
That being said, Tank Dell did not have a great day. In fact, he had one catch for a 3-yard loss on 4 targets. Tank has never had less than 10 yards receiving in a game. Tank never had less than 10 yards receiving in a game in college. Tank never had less than 10 yards receiving in a game in JUCO. I don't even think he had less than 10 yards receiving in a game in high school. He was almost a forgotten man yesterday.
Mm.
That they've got to rectify that. They can't let Tank be a forgotten guy.
Well, I'll say this. I think there was multiple plays yesterday that Tank left out there, right? So for me, I wouldn't say he was a forgotten guy as far as the play scheme. I think he didn't play up to his potential yesterday. There was a ball on the sideline, tough catch, but he can make that catch. Perfect ball on the sideline. It goes through his hands and he doesn't come up with it, right? It would have been a touchdown catch, as you mentioned, Pat. Touchdown catch in the middle of the field. He's probably still running right now if he catches that thing. He's out the gate 88. Like he is rolling. But he drops it, right? And he goes to the sideline and says, hey, I lost the ball. I couldn't see, which I believe because the ball hit off his face mask. He tried to put his hands up way too late. So I think those two are on him. If he catches those 2 balls, he probably has around 80-ish yards receiving, if not more than that, just on those 2 catches. But if you look at how the game is going, if you look at how the target share is going, he's going to get about 4 to 5, maybe 6 targets a game. He has to make the most of it. So I think that's on Tank to step up. And I tell you what, I think Bobby sees it, D'Amico sees it, and they'll be very intentional about getting him going early the next game versus the Vikings. I expect that because, like you said, you got to rectify it. You got to get him going some type of way. The team is better when Tank is making plays on the field. Period. So get him going next week early. I wouldn't be surprised in that first series if you see 2 or 3 short passes or runs going his way. I love how they're using him in the run game. I think he has 3 carries, 16 yards. If there's a speed sweep or put him in the backfield, stuff like that. That's fun to see. So he had 7 opportunities to touch the ball yesterday, but it's on him. And he's a younger guy, but it's on him to really make the most of those opportunities.
CJ didn't seem as sharp at all times. Like he made some absolutely incredible throws. I mean, it's almost what where we expect CJ Stroud every week is going to put on the magician hat and do some wizardry. And had one, where he rolls out right, escaping traffic, gets hit as he delivers a perfect strike down the sideline to Nico. But there were some passes where he missed guys that he doesn't usually miss. And there was some pressure. He was sacked 3 times. There were a lot of times where there was a lot of pressure and he didn't have a clean pocket or he had to get out and buy himself a little bit of time. But CJ 23 of 36, which overall most people are like, that's a pretty good day in the office. But there were throws that CJ doesn't usually miss. Your thoughts on CJ Stroud yesterday? I didn't think it was his best game, yet he still made some throws that were just like out of the hat.
CJ is special, and I agree. It wasn't his best game. If you watch the game, you're like, oh, he seems a little off. I just think the pressure was there. I think the defensive fronts from the Colts and the Bears are darn good, and they were finding ways to get pressure on CJ. And what he did special yesterday, which is kind of unique for him. If you watched him in college, he wasn't the guy that got out of the pocket a lot. If you watched him in college, he wasn't the guy that ran the ball a lot, right? But he is adapting, and he is athletic. I don't know why some of us don't think he's athletic, but he is sneaky athletic. He got out of the pocket last night and made plays. Made plays on the run, made plays with his feet. He did a good job finding ways to still be successful and make the plays he needs to. Did he miss some throws? Absolutely. But the defensive pressure and defensive line is coming, and it's not going to be the only time. You're going to get another defensive line with Jonathan Kennard and others on that Vikings line coming up. It's going to be good. But what happens is it's a copycat league. So the same things the Colts were doing, standing up, walking around, finding different ways to attack, stunts and eats and stuff like that on the defensive line, the Bears mimic the same thing. Plus, you didn't have Juice Shrugs yesterday. Your starting center was out, which was a late scratch, right? So you put in Jared, and he's not. I mean, you can't supplement game reps, right? He didn't play last week. He comes in, gets a big time game in a prime time stage against a good defensive line. Montez Sweat and others coming around. So I do think the pressure They need to slow down the pressure some type of way. Maybe it's holding it back in. So now you got 6-man protection, right? Maybe it's bringing the tight end in some, and now you got 7-man protection, or maybe the tight end's helping with the defense end and chipping. But you got to find ways to give him more time in the pocket. But he's doing an exceptional job of what he has in front of him. So I'm not mad at that, but I do agree. It wasn't his best night, but it still was a good night from CJ Stroud.
Kaimi Fairbairn.
Oh, automatic. Oh,
I mean, once upon a time, if you were asked who's the best kicker in the NFL, the answer was Justin Tucker, and nobody batted an eye.
yes.
If you ask somebody today who's the best kicker in the NFL, the answer should be Kaimi Fairbairn. 4 more field goals, including 3 from 50 plus, 1 from 59. That might have been good from 65. And that's the roof open. I mean, he is automatic. And it doesn't matter how far it is. He is not only the best kicker in the league as far as he's accurate. He's accurate. He's got Steph Curry range. There's no limit. He got Steph Curry range.
I love that. It's a different confidence you have an offense where if you get in a certain range, you're automatically gonna get points, right? If you hit the certain yard mark, all right, we're gonna get points here. And his yard mark is moving further and further and further. One kick from 59 could have been good from 65. It seemed like, right? He is somebody that has over the years been very consistent and consistently accurate. But this year, man, he's off to a hot start. And I tell you what, the defense and special teams held it down for the offense yesterday. I think you mentioned it. 1 offensive touchdown yesterday. 1. The rest came from Kaimi. like Fairbairn held it down yesterday. And when you have that confidence as a head coach, like, hey, all right, good. I know we're getting 3 points because we got to this yard line. I know we're good. Now it's about executing, getting touchdowns, right? And I think that will come more with more of the offense plays together and they get more continuity. But man, you gotta be feeling good about your special teams right now.
All right, I'm going to put you in the Wayback Machine here. Do you remember way back when we were kids? Now, this is a longer memory for me than you, but on the TV broadcasts, they used to how they say, okay, this is 20-yard line in, that's the red zone. But then they'd for late game situations, they'd have what they called the field goal range, and they'd around the 30-yard line, or depending on the kicker, maybe it's the 32-yard line, and say, okay, this is the field goal range for this team, for this guy. It's a 2-minute drive. The field goal range for the Texans might be the 42.
Yeah. Yep.
If he hit the 40-yard line, they're in.
He's that good. He is that good right now. And I'll tell you, I played with a guy in Tampa. I forgot his name. He was a kicker. He went first round or second round from Florida State. Really, really good kicker. I mean, amazing in college, right? And he had all the ability in the world, but mentally he struggled. So he wasn't that he couldn't figure it out, right? Kaimi is so locked in. He's so focused. He's so consistent. He's so accurate. Man, he is about to have a special season as a kicker, and I'm excited to see him. Like, he's special, man.
Was that Roberto Aguayo?
Roberto, yes, it was. Unbelievable in college. Unbelievable. And his talent was there, just mentally, he was just psyched himself out. It was crazy. He just psyched himself out, and he couldn't make it. He was wide left, wide right, overthinking. And it's like, you got all the talent in the world, but he couldn't get it together. And you watch Fairbairn, and he's like, he's locked in. Like, I'm walking around the stadium yesterday, and he's just locked in, knocking them down. No matter where it's at, no matter the scene, no matter who's rushing, he's focused, and he's going to knock it down. And then that's a good feeling when you're offense. You're going to at least get 3 every time you get past the 50. That's a big deal.
Just keep giving that man his money. So you talk about the defense and how, look, the defense and the special teams held it down for the Texans Sunday night. 48% pressure rate.
Ooh.
23 pressures and 48 dropbacks. They actually had like 36 pressures because multiple guys were getting pressures on the same play.
Mm-hmm.
They had 7 sacks. They had 2 picks. They had 11 quarterback hits. They had 9 tackles for loss. The Texans were living in the backfield.
Yeah.
They blitzed a little more often than D'Amico usually blitzes. They got after Caleb Williams. And tell you what, I've had some questions about his maturity. But as far as his physical toughness, he showed you yesterday he doesn't lack for physical toughness because the Texans kicked his ass.
Yeah.
And they bodied him all over the place. Daniil literally doing like a Superman splash,
Oh my
driving him to the
gosh.
ground. He got blown up on multiple hits. The Texans pounded that dude into the ground, and he stood up and look, the guy kept firing. I
Yeah.
give him credit that he stayed in the game, he kept firing, but I did see something at the end of the game that I thought was interesting, was telling. Last year, when CJ Stroud was drafted by the Texans, every single player on that team bought into CJ Stroud, except maybe Davis Mills, but I'll give him a pass. But Laramie Tunsil on Instagram, QB1. I mean, we're in May. And
Early.
Laramie
Yep.
on
Early.
QB1.
Yep.
Everybody bought in. CJ Stroud is our dude. CJ Stroud is the truth. He's our leader, and we're all behind him. I had questions about, Caleb Williams, not from a talent standpoint, but from a maturity standpoint. Is he going to be able to lead a 53 grown men on an NFL field? Because some of the maturity based type things were a little sketch sometimes at USC.
Mm-hmm.
And during fourth quarter yesterday, there's a play where he is throwing the ball towards DJ Moore, who's got one-on-one coverage, and the throw is to the outside and it's out of bounds, and it's not an accurate throw.
Mm-hmm.
And Moore is on the ground, grabs his helmet, like lays there for like a second or two in just frustration, gets up, walks off the field, throws his helmet to the ground, like showing up the quarterback because, hey, this pass wasn't where I needed it to be. That never happened with CJ Stroud. CJ missed a pass. Nobody was throwing their helmet or acting a fool or going crazy. DJ Moore is a veteran player and should be one of the guys backing his quarterback and helping his quarterback grow. Totally showed his quarterback up in the fourth quarter. A winnable game. Showed his quarterback up, took himself out of the game. You played receiver. You played with a lot of different quarterbacks. What does that say to you when you see a guy do that?
It hurts. The receiver is frustrated to the point where he can only think about himself right now. Like, why am I not getting the ball? I want to help the team. Why am I not getting the targets? Why is not a feasible ball? In that moment, he has to put himself aside and like, hey, I got a rookie. And he's getting pressure. Like at that point, you know how much pressure Caleb is getting. He's running for his life, literally. And he was actually more mobile than I thought he was. Like he impressed me last night. How was he able to scramble, move, dip, dap a little bit, make guys miss? But you still, this is just what I was taught. You still got to be a team guy in that moment, no matter how frustrated you are. You still got to be a team guy. And you got to realize it's only week 2. He will develop. He will get better. The team will get better. The team will develop. I think DJ's coming from a different place where he's been frustrated the last couple years. He had Justin Fields the last couple years trying to really get back in the swing of things. He's trying to prove that he's a number one guy, and things are just working out, right? But it says a lot because you're right. That didn't happen with CJ. It didn't happen with CJ. It didn't. Now, I do think CJ is a unique type of leader to win guys over very early. And I do think last year he had a young batch of receivers. So when you have those young batch of receivers, they're trying to make plays for you, right? So it's a different mindset. They're trying to prove themselves. They're trying to go out there and play for you and still team ball. They're still thinking about the team more say. And DJ's been around 6, 7, 8 years almost. And he's been through different quarterbacks. So it's a different mindset for him, a different team to team chemistry for him, right? Where you had Tank and Nico and those guys, Robert Woods, who's a ultimate professional. Those guys been around. No, Robert been around for a while. He knows how to do it, and then he's teaching Tank and Nico, who are younger, how to do things. So that's all they see. That's all they know. But the type of leadership that CJ has, I mean, you mentioned it from May. Larry tells us, "Hey, this is my QB1." That's just not normal. You haven't heard that coming out of, and not saying you heard a lot of things come out of Chicago, a lot of positives that he's doing that, but he's just a different type of leader in Caleb Williams, right? CJ's more about the team. I'm gonna have this team ready to go. Boom, boom, boom. Caleb seems a little bit more on the uh, flamboyant side, more of the outgoing side, right? Nothing wrong with that. Just different. Just different. So I just think Caleb has to continue to learn and win over his guys, and he'll get better. And once he gets better and learns how to lead, things will get better for them. But CJ is unique, man. He's a special, special type of leader. And you've seen the last two games. You see the maturity in him, as you mentioned, the last two games, the pressure in his face, the pressure down his throat. He's able to figure out how to make plays. He falls down to the turf, able to find Brevin Jordan in week one against the Colts for a fourth down, first down. He's able to get pressure and get outside the pocket last night and find Nico Collins, find Stephon Diggs, find Brevin Jordan or whoever it may be to get first downs. He's able to be clutch on fourth down. Like he just understands how to make throws. And if a guy's open, he's going to hit him. As simple as a pass to Cade Stover last night on fourth down after the play action, as simple as that pass was, that was a big throw. And that's guys that continue those and stuff like that. Making the basic throws will help you continue to believe in number 7, right? Whereas Caleb Williams still, if you look at last week, he kind of struggled when it comes to statistics. This week was a little bit better, but it's still, he still has to go out and prove himself. But CJ is just unique, man. He's a unique guy, and I'm glad he's with the Houston Texans.
Now, Cecil, we mentioned about the defense and the defensive front and just beaten down on Caleb Williams. 7 sacks. That is one shy of the team record of 8 sacks, which was set January 3rd, 2016. You were actually a member of the Houston Texans at this time against the Jacksonville Jaguars, but it was a game where Whitney Merciless had 3.5 sacks and J.J. Watt had 3 sacks. They combined for 6.5 of the 8 sacks. Yesterday, it was more of a team effort. You had Will Anderson Jr. and Danielle Hunter each had a sack and a half, and then a bunch of other dudes also had sacks, right? Henry To'oTo'o has a sack. Azeez Al-Shaair has a sack. Mario Edwards Jr. had a sack. Derek Barnett had a sack.
Yeah.
Like 6 different dudes had sacks for the Houston Texans yesterday, and that's, before the season, one of the consternations for Texans fans was, well, what about defensive tackle? They let go of 2 really good defensive tackles. How are they going to replace them? Is Danico Autry going to be able to be that guy full time? And then Danico winds up missing the first 6 games of the year. Are the other guys going to be able to handle the load? Well, for the most part, we've seen from Foley Fatukasi, from Mario Edwards Jr., from Derek Barnett.
Mm-hmm.
You know what? Those guys are getting the job done.
Mm-hmm. They're doing it. They're doing extremely well. They're meeting expectations and maybe even passing expectations. They're like, hey, I can still play ball. I may not be a big name like Nico Autry, but I can make plays when my number is called. And when you have guys like that, that's a really big deal. Because when Danico comes back, ooh, buddy, when he comes back and gets in that rotation to add on to all the success you're continuing to have, it's going to be a sight to see. But one thing that Danico did really good last night, I thought, and I heard some guys talking about this, I think, on the radio. They were bringing, like you mentioned, more blitzes last night. And what that does is it makes the offensive line go from, so the Texans run a 4-man front. And it's obviously 5 offensive linemen. Do a little bit of math here. So one guy can be doubled if need be, right? But when you bring a blitz, so you bring 1 backer or 2 backers, now you have one-on-one matchups with the offensive line. So now Danielle Hunter and Will Anderson Jr. have one-on-one matchups with those tackles, and that's exactly what you want. I mean, the one sack you talked about, it looked like Danielle Hunter was a lion catching his prey, just hopping on hopping on Caleb Williams. But he was in the one-on-one matchup, and that's all you can ask for. If you're bringing blitzes and getting pressure, and the guard has to get off of that, can't help that tackle, or the center can't help the guard. You have one-on-one matchups everywhere. You gotta like your odds if you're the Houston Texans. When you have those type of guys on the field, whether it's Danielle Hunter, Will Anderson Jr., Danico Autry when he comes back, Mario Edwards has made plays, right? Or even if you're doubling those guys, then that's why you got sacks from Azeez and Henry To'oTo'o last night. So great job by Danico and that defense finding ways to get one-on-one matchups and bringing the pressure and being able to find ways to get the quarterback down.
The Bears' offensive line definitely threw a few lookout blocks during yesterday's game.
Look out!
Look out! They threw some lookout blocks. Somebody might have wanted to yell, "Look out!" right as Daniil was about to, as you said, lion pounce on Caleb Williams. I mean, he jumped up in the air, he had his arms up, like, ah! Like,
I'm like, oh, I'm on the side. I'm like, oh my gosh, is he gonna be okay?
There was
Hey, I tell you what. Remember all the talk about who's gonna play linebacker? Like, can Christian? We don't have Texas. Don't have Christian Harris. Who's gonna step up? Henry Toa last night was everywhere. If I'm not mistaken, Pat, was he the leading tackler? 13-ish tackles last
he
night?
Once again, leading tackler, Henry Toto. He and Aziz have been a pair of missiles out there, just beelining to the ball everywhere. I mean, look, they got lucky when Aziz did not get tossed for landing a punch on Roschon Johnson's face mask. Number one, Aziz, don't punch a guy wearing a face mask. It's a good way to break your hand. Don't freaking do that.
Please don't get hurt.
But those two dudes were everywhere. And, hi, welcome back, Jalen Petrie, who he blew a few guys up yesterday as well. I mean, the Texans defense, D'Amico always talks about swarm.
Yeah.
They were swarming everywhere.
Agreed.
I mean, you look at what they did defensively against the run, right? When they held the Bears to 71 yards on the ground and 3.2 yards per carry. 44 of those 71 yards came on scrambles by Caleb Williams. One of them was 24 yards, like in the fourth quarter.
Oh, yeah, for a first down. Yeah.
They held DeAndre Swift and Khalil Herbert, their two running backs, 16 carries, 21 yards. I mean, they had nowhere to go. There was nowhere to run against this Houston defense. And, we talked before the season about the defense and how, kind of feel like the Texans defense is going to be better than people think. I think people think they're going to be like a middle of the pack type defense. Like, this could be a top 8 defense. And you saw they got the pressures up front. They had their linebackers and Jalen Petrie, who's essentially a hybrid linebacker. Those three guys combined for 33 tackles. And then in the secondary, Sting gets a pick. Lassiter gets a pick. Like, this team, this defense looks like they are legit.
Yeah.
Like legit top 8 style, that kind of ability on this defense. And, man, when you take a team that has the kind of offensive firepower the Texans have, what the passing game can be. And now you match it up to a defense that is going to take the ball away from the other team, is going to put the other team's quarterback under siege. There's a lot of things that are lining up really well for a first place Texans team that is 2 games up on everybody in the division, except the Indianapolis Colts, who you might say they're 2.5 games up on. But this was, look, they didn't score the points. They missed opportunities. They definitely left points on the field. But they pretty much dominated every other aspect of this game.
Yep.
And for the young guy, the thing on Lassiter was, well, he's a great cover guy, but he doesn't have the hands like Derek Stingley. He doesn't take the ball away. Those rumors may be unfounded.
He should have had 2 last night. One was a call back for a defensive holding by another guy, by a linebacker, but should have been 2 picks.
Actually, it was called on Totoa. But Kamari Lassiter, who doesn't have a reputation like Derek Stingley for being a ball hawk and taking the ball away.
Yeah,
he's gonna have one soon.
Yes, buddy.
He's gonna have one soon.
Yes, buddy. I'm excited to see him develop, man. He showed up last night, and it's good for a rookie to get confidence early, right? To get confidence early in the season on a big stage, get that interception. He played well last night, had some breakups, so it's really good to see him make some plays.
Let's talk for a minute here about Aziz Al-Shaair, because he has been tremendous. First 2 weeks of the season, he is all over the field. He's everywhere. He has a total mental meltdown on the sideline after hitting Caleb Williams. And look, that was a clean hit. Williams was still in bounds. Yep. That was a good hit. Yep. A lot of people, especially Bears fans, crying, "Oh, that was a dirty hit." No, that was a very legal hit. this idea of, he was giving himself up. If you don't slide,
He's in bounds.
You didn't give yourself up. You give yourself up, you slide.
Yep.
We have seen quarterbacks for 40-plus years act like they're going out of bounds and then psych and take up off the field. I remember Joe Montana did it to the Giants. But this is
flashback.
Literally. If you're a quarterback and you're going out of bounds and you don't slide, you didn't give yourself up. If your foot does not hit the white sideline, you can get popped. He got popped. Yep. And, it was on the Bears sideline. So Azeez now finds himself surrounded by 20 orange jerseys. And stuff is getting said. But you are a veteran leader on this team. Yeah. You can't let guys run their mouths that causes you to lose your cool. And you throw a freaking haymaker and land on a guy's face. Yeah. Like, you can't. The only reason he was not ejected is because the referees were absolutely freaking blind last night. Not just on that call, on a lot of calls. But they were blind last night. He should have been thrown out, and I expect he will be getting an email from the league debiting his account some $50,000 or so. But your thoughts on that play, that moment for Azeez? I mean, does he understand? Like, this is him surrounded by 20 orange jerseys. This could have been a battle royal of 20 dudes against him. That would not have ended well. Like, that can't happen.
It can't happen, right? But I got two different feels about it. So, number one, it can't happen. You can't put yourself at risk. I don't want you to break your hand because you're playing outstanding. You're a darn good player for this football team. We don't want you to get hurt at any expense, right? He went in defense mode because there was all the guys surrounding him, talking trash to him, saying whatever. You got to be smart enough to get out of there. Just jog out of there. You're fine. It's all a big deal because you get to hit somebody next play. You're a linebacker. You get to hit somebody every play if you want to, like every single play. He pisses you off. He says something crazy. He talks about your mom, your auntie, whatever the case may be. You can go blow him up legally the next play, the very next play or next series, right? So he has to remember that. I think about that. But what I did love about that situation, his mentality. Because his mentality is, I don't care how many guys are around me. I don't care who you are. You're not going to come up on me. You're not going to talk crazy to me. You're not going to intimidate me. I heard Denzel Washington say one time, remember the Titans, I don't dance unless I hear music. I don't eat unless I'm hungry. I will not be intimidated. He's not going to be intimidated. And that's the mindset the whole defense has as a whole. If you watched last night, they were physical. They were physical. The Texans as a full team were physical. From Nico Collins catching the touchdown and power bombing that guy in the end zone, to Henry To'oTo'o, to Daniil Hunter, to Petrie. These guys are playing physical swarm football. So for him to have that mindset and it continues on the sideline, number one, yes, he has to chill out. We can't afford to lose you. We can't afford you to miss any games or get hurt. But number two, I simply love that mindset. He's got to be smarter, but I love that mindset because it carries to the rest of the team. Because on defense, they are flying and hitting, and it's going to everybody. Special teams had some big hits last night. The run game 2 weeks ago was amazing. So that mindset of toughness, that mindset of, I don't care, I'm not going to be intimidated by anybody. I freaking love it. Just had to be under control in that setting.
All right, so Texans are 2-0. And next week, they're going to get a very surprising 2-0 Vikings team that just, believe it or not, just handled the San Francisco 49ers. Now, the Niners don't usually get handled. And when I say they got handled, Minnesota ran the ball for 146 yards and 6.1 yards per clip.
Sheesh.
Sam Darnold is playing maybe playing the best football he's played in his career. He's a guy who came out of school with a lot of hype, was in a really bad situation with a bad team and a revolving door at offensive coordinator, bounced around a little bit, and now maybe has found a home with the Minnesota Vikings, almost kind of like how Geno Smith has found a home in Seattle. Mm-hmm. Sam Darnold has now found a home, and look, 17 of 26, 268 yards and 2 scores against San Francisco's defense. Solid numbers. The run game was I mean, look, I can't remember the last time the 49ers got trucked in the run game for 6 yards a carry and 146 yards. But the Vikings played very, very well. They do that 1 week after just throttling a patsy New York Giants team that can't get out of its own way. And the Texans will go on the road, and they will play in Minnesota. Your early thoughts on that matchup?
Just to be honest, I'm not sold on Sam Darnold. That's just me. I am excited to see the matchup of Stingley and Justin Jefferson. I'm excited to see Jonathan Gennard go against Laramie Tunsil and Titus Howard. Former teammates going against each other. They know each other well. They know their good habits, their bad habits. They know what they can handle and not. So that'll be a fun matchup to see. And I want to see. We have not seen the explosion of Stephon Diggs yet. So I'm curious. Will this be the week, or we're gonna save it for Buffalo? But will this be the week that he will kind of explode on the scene? But I'm looking forward to it. It's always tough when you're flying to Minnesota, but it should be a solid matchup. I can't believe they're 2-0. Well, if you give me some bets and say, hey, will the Vikings and the Texans be 2-0 facing each other week 3? I'd be like, nah, I don't see the Vikings doing that. But they're in a good position. They're playing good football right now, so it should be a good game.
All right. Those who need to be more concerned, whatever cornerback is covering Stephon Diggs, because Stephon Diggs, even though it's 5 years removed, still very much aware of the fact that Minnesota Vikings decided not to pay him and ship him off to Buffalo. Or Danielle Hunter coming back in, Sam Darnold needing to find wherever Danielle Hunter is because, well, it's his first time back in Minnesota as well. Who do you think has the bigger game here, Stephon Diggs or Danielle Hunter?
I would say this is tough. This is tough. Ooh, I say Diggs. I think Diggs is due for one. I think Diggs is due for a big game. So I'm gonna say Diggs, but I think Danielle's more fresh. he was just there last season, but I'm gonna go with Diggs because I think Diggs is due for a big game, and I think Diggs is petty. He wants to let you know, hey, you should have paid me. You could have had me and Justin Jefferson, but you decided not to. So this is what you get. Boom, 2-3 touchdowns, 100-something yards. So I would say Diggs.
There is no petty like sports petty. Man, and I said, Stephon's a dude who's got a chip on his shoulder. And if he doesn't have a chip on his shoulder, he will build a chip to put on his shoulder. So, I do think that Diggs will have the kind of game of a hi, remember me? This what could have been. Y'all messed this up. And, but I do also think that Danielle Hunter is probably going to be looking at the Vikings and saying, oh, didn't want to pay me? Fine. I'm gonna cave your quarterback's head in. Could be that kind of game. We'll be back later on in the week with another edition of the Believe in Texans podcast. This is if you get us on any platform. Make sure you like and subscribe to the Believe in Texans podcast. He is Cecil Shorts, former Houston Texans wide receiver, 6-year NFL veteran. I'm Patrick Creighton, host of Area 45 on Sports Radio 610, your home for the Houston Texans. We'll see you later on in the week. Until then, go Texans.